Yes, indeedy, folks. It's the Beer Drinker's Guide to the Great Wahoo. Let's drive Moab. I went for a little drive down to Moab back in the spring of 2007. It was a nice time to be there. Not a whole lot of tourists. Still nice and cool, as you can see by these pictures. Some nice overcast days, so you weren't just broiling in the sun. And in the next couple of shows, we'll be getting to Moab. But for now, let's look at the drive down there. We're not going to worry about between here and Provo, which I think many of us have taken and know the freeway well. But just south of Provo at Spanish Fork, we take off on Highway 6. And today it is this highway, Highway 6, from Spanish Fork over to Green River that we're going to concentrate on. And we will leave Highway 191 down to Moab for another day. After leaving the Salt Lake Valley, Highway 6 runs up Thistle Creek. I love this long cut through the hills. What a dramatic piece of building highways this is. At the cut in the hill that we see in the distance there, the road veers off to the left. It leaves Thistle Creek and goes up Soldier Creek towards Soldier Summit. Here we are at the cut through the hill that we saw earlier, and we are looking down into the Thistle Creek Canyon. And yes, folks, those are railroad tracks, and that is a railroad tunnel. As you know, your beer drinking guide is something of a train nut, so don't be surprised if we see more of this. And at the same time, we'll be seeing some of that earthen dam that you can see in the background. Here's a little view of Highway 6 and Thistle Creek looking back from where we have driven. This is to the north and to the west. After turning left at the cut in the hill, the Highway 6 leaves Thistle Creek and goes up Soldier Creek, following the railroad. There's a 25-mile stretch here where the road continues to climb. These beautiful long cuts through the hills. I once misjudged how slowly a truck was going up this grade and found myself coming right up under him. Fortunately, I was able to swerve out of the way at the last minute. Since then, I've always assumed trucks are going slower than I think they are. And I did that on this drive as well. Fortunately, this drive went much better, did not have any close calls like that. After much sightseeing and some precarious, harrowing experiences, which I hope that you avoid, we come to Soldier Summit at 7,454 feet. And folks, were the travel gods ever with me on this particular part of the journey? Right as I got to the summit, I noticed the railroad track up above me going over the summit, so I stopped to look at it, and just as I was looking at it, here came a large freight train just cresting the hill. A train cresting a summit. I'll tell you, when you are a train nut, you just don't get much luckier than that. After Soldier Summit, Highway 6 goes down a long, gentle drive into Price Valley. It joins Price River and heads toward Price Canyon, which we'll be seeing some photographs of. Price River, after Price Canyon, flows through Helper and then down through Price and on over to the Green River. And the little town of Helper, which is right at the end of the canyon, a very spectacular entrance to the canyon, is named that because that's where they keep the engines that help the trains over the summit from Helper on over into the Salt Lake City Valley. But before we get to Helper, let's drive down through the beautiful little Price Canyon. And folks, it was here driving through Price Canyon that I came to realize that the travel gods love me more than they love any other beer drinking, wahoo guiding, train nut traveler that could possibly be. Oh yes, folks, it is a passenger train. Catching trains at all when you're a train nut is always a treat. But when it's a passenger train, you are in hog heaven. Now folks, I have to apologize. I had just gotten this camera and had not gotten used to flipping on the movies. Later on this trip, I started taking movies and I've gotten used to them now. But for the glory of this passenger train, I'm afraid that I missed the opportunity and I promise to do better in the future. And speaking of doing better in the future, here is a picture of the track leaving Price Canyon. And oh yes, folks, I meant for my finger to be there pointing at it. Heading south from Price, Highway 6 goes 60 miles across open, flat desert, heading down toward Freeway number 70, where we'll be turning to the east and heading toward Green River. Once you get past this 60 miles of straight roads with great vistas, you take the freeway for just a very short time before you get to Green River, where I pulled over looking for lunch. As I am wont to do while I was looking for lunch, I pretty well went through the whole town telling myself, well, just pull over at one of these places and eat. But I was hemming and hawing around until finally I got to Green River itself, the river that goes through town, and I looked across the river, and here was this restaurant that had great looking windows overlooking the river. So that's what I did. Stopped here and had a nice lunch. And here's a little sense of the view from the nice windows at that restaurant. The Green River, which I think could be called the Brown River, but it's not. And so our adventure on Highway 6 from Spanish Fork to Green River comes to a close. Next week, we'll head on down to Moab. 191 looks an awful lot like Highway 6 from Price down to Green River, but once you get to Moab, things get more interesting. I got into Moab rather early, so even before I went hunting for a hotel, I decided to take a little drive going downriver on the Colorado River. We'll start next week with that, and who knows, we'll probably find a hotel and maybe go on some other adventure before we're through. And now? Wow! I didn't know that. When the first specimen of a platypus was received in Europe, the scientists all thought it was surely a hoax. After all, the creature had a mole's fur like a mammal, it had a duck's bill like a bird, it had feet like a reptile, but for as much as they examined it for stitches and glue, it actually seemed like a real creature. We have just finished cracking the genetic code of this animal, and actually it is a much more bizarre animal than those scientists first thought. The platypus has genes for laying eggs, like a reptile. It has mammalian genes for making milk, even though it has no nipples. It shares with snakes a gene for making venom, which it puts out through spurs in its hind feet. Interestingly, the venom is very similar to snakes, even though it evolved separately and has a common starter from a molecule from the immune system. On top of that, while most mammals have an X and Y, or 2 chromosomes to determine whether they're male or female, the platypus has 10. Some of those are closely related to the Z and W chromosomes found in birds. So here's to our brothers and sisters, the platypi. What a celebration of the great wahoo! With friends and neighbors like this, who needs fairy tales? Signs of our times. Another cranky look at the fact that it's all going to heck in a handbasket. When last we looked at signs of our times, we looked at this building on the corner of Shoreline and Americana. It was rather stunning to us exactly who these wooden panels were going to be keeping in or out. Things have progressed since that primitive time, and now we find this building in this excellent condition. Yes, folks, now the building is pretty well enclosed, and indeed you could keep people out, or bears, or running foxes, or whatever happened to be going by. The building before the front was all enclosed. The building now. kind of seems to me like now is when the plywood panels would be handy in those big holes in the concrete walls. And this has been another look at the signs of our times. Blatant proof right in our face that it's all going to heck in a handbasket. Walking in the Glory, a special celebration of the Great Wahoo. Proudly sponsored by Heaven's Gate Pantaloons. Heaven's Gate Pantaloons. Serving your need for comfortable walking clothes that your neighbors might not call pajamas. And don't forget matching Heaven's Gate shoes, socks, and slippers, just in case you do use them for pajamas. Heaven's Gate Pantaloons, shoes, socks, and slippers. The perfect answer for your heavenly strolls. And now, today's edifying episode of Walking in the Glory.
Now, folks, you know that now that I'm your beer drinking guide, I spend all my time dedicated to you. I sit in my computer and I spend all my time worrying about your edification in the Great Wahoo. I don't go out. I don't do anything. I just sit and worry about you. That's all it's about. Trust me, folks. It's true. I just sit and eat bonbons and get fat and worry about you. But I used to have a life. I really did. And then I used to do things like, going for a walk in my backyard, for instance. In fact, one of those times that I did have a life, like today about noon, I did go for a walk in my backyard. Here's a little glimpse.
I enjoyed this walk on the 6th day of May, 2008. As I'm sure most of you recall, this has been a late spring, a couple weeks later than usual as far as most things blooming. So here it was on the 6th of May that I was enjoying watching the leaves just coming out, that early, extremely green, lovely yellowish green that you get in the leaves. And all of this beautiful earth was covered with textures and colors, and just the sunlight coming through it all was so stunning. Such a beautiful day in this crisp air that is just getting warm, yet has that crisp coolness in it that makes it so that it's, how do you say, the smells are there, but they're not become weakened yet in too much heat. So I'm going to just shut up now and let you enjoy just the visual beauty of it. For your edification, we now bring you a true story of family values. There was a handsome young man going to marry a beautiful, beautiful woman, and he was looking forward to it with all his heart. The only problem was her little sister. That 19-year-old was just as provocative as she could be. It seems that only around him was she always wearing short skirts and always needed to be picking something up. She'd walk by real close. Why, sometimes it didn't seem like she was trying to be subtle at all. Then, one day, the groom got a call from this little sister saying that they needed to talk about the wedding cake and would he come right over. He did go over and was shocked to find her alone in the house and with hardly anything on. Well, she explained to him that she had always found him very attractive, and she suggested to him that he's not married yet, so maybe if he'd like just one last fling, she's gonna go upstairs, and if he wants to follow her, he knows what he can do. Well, the poor groom was just beside himself. He went running out the front door to his truck. And as soon as he opened the front door, there was his entire future family-in-law, all sitting there with big grins on their faces and applauding his action. His future father-in-law came over and threw his arms around him and said, "Oh, son, please forgive us for having this little test, but I just had to make sure you were the right man for my little daughter, and now I see that you are. Welcome to the family." Well, the groom was sure glad. He loved his future bride, and he wanted to get married to her, and he was glad that he had gone running out that door. And the moral of this story is, always keep your condoms in your truck. Yes, indeedy, folks. That wraps up yet another show of the Beer Drinker's Guide to the Great Wahoo. Thanks for joining me. Hope to see you next week when we'll head on into Moab and see what we can rattle around about in there. And who knows what else your beer drinking guide will come up to prattle about. Don't be surprised if we find something to say about the summer solstice.